this relationship thing is very important, because when it becomes about what you do, then you will become a materialistic society.
Yay!
That I want this, because that's what says I'm successful.
Yay!
But now,
because that's the measure of success.
That's the measure of success.
The measure of success is not being kind. It's not thinking critically. It's not going against the grain.
It's not finding yourself. It's not helping others to be the best they can be.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Science with Thuli. I'm still with Ipeleng Mathebula, and now we're doing our hashtag Beyond Science segment, where we find out a little bit more about who he is and what he does. What is a backyard scientist or engineer? What does that actually mean?
So I find it as the intersection between life and research. That's what the backyard is, because of if you cannot do it in your backyard, it means it's probably removed.
I am very philosophical about this thing. So when I go to VITS and someone else goes to whatever institution they go to conduct their research, you get up and you go to your backyard, and that's where you're developing these engines.
Yeah.
Why?
Because of what happened is I wanted to look at applied research. So from a technical perspective, it's applied research. But this is applied research in the sense that it affects the ordinary man on the street, to the point that it doesn't only affect other people, it actually affects me. So I have a vehicle. And because I have a car, this guy has an engine.
Surely institutions out there are doing work that affects people.
Mm-hmm.
How is it different?
So on my side, it means that it's actually a mashup between my life and the research, because of it's research that affects me, but it has potential to affect others. And this research has been going on for some time now, like for 7 years. And what has happened is there was a stage where I used to work in a small town called Kriel when I drove from Joburg. The distance is about 280 kilometers a day.
Oh, and you drove every day?
I drove in and out. And then during that, you can realize that that is a transport problem that I've created, but nonetheless, it's a
Why are you doing it in your backyard?
Because of it is the way to get closer to the science.
Is it a control thing? Do you want to have more control over your research?
It's actually a cost thing.
How is it a cost thing? Who's funding this research?
I think in your segment you were speaking about taxpayers.
Are we funding this research?
I have to say yes.
How?
So what has happened is the work is important to the green economy space. So and that will be green economy, meaning allow South Africa to find sustainable ways for moving forward. So that will be the green economy, and then under the green economy there's a track for green transport. So under green transport they're looking for ways that companies like Boost Mechanics and Ipeleng through it find ways to make existing vehicles more efficient. So
Boost Mechanic is the entity or the company, as it were, that you conduct your research under.
Yes.
And how is it not working in a research facility and not having where you're your own researcher? You're not answerable to anyone.
Yes.
How is that?
Answerable to the state.
Because who's funding you? The government.
Yes.
So it is our money.
I was waiting for you to get to that. So it is. So,
oh yeah?
Yeah.
Is it expensive research though?
Very.
Are you
very,
using,
very,
did you have to,
very.
Where did you get the engine, where do you get the material that you're working with?
So it's a combination. So what the sweat equity that goes into it. So we don't get funded salaries. So we actually do it because of
Is that what you guys call labor? Sweat equity.
free labor.
Is that what you call work?
Sweat equity.
Hey, you guys want to be smart about everything.
Yes. And then the other part, because the engine parts are expensive and the modification is expensive, that part is actually co-funded by the government through grants.
So how are you sustaining your life and your family and your kid?
Good question. And at this point in time, well, it's a lot of
Is it rough?
savings.
It's a lot of savings.
So you have to you just look at the burn rate and you keep an eye on it. How much money do you burn per day? And then you make sure that...
Are you one of those that have like a spreadsheet like stuck on the fridge for how much people are using and how much bread is today and how much it was yesterday? Are you like those kind of people?
No.
Are you sure?
No. I do the projection.
You do the projections.
Yeah.
And you've been married for like 9 years now.
Yeah.
How is that? You were married young.
Very.
Wow.
Fairly young.
No, you were young. Why decide to marry young?
Funny enough.
Or was it a decision, or is it just that, oh, this woman, my gosh?
I think marriage is different for different people. So in my case, I have a strong conviction to say that my wife and I had to go through what I'm going through together.
Yeah.
Because if I can see that we have grown together through this process of starting this company, nurturing it for 7 years of the 9, and then just working together on it and saying, okay, what works now for this phase?
Oh, are you guys working together on Boost Mechanics?
It's more the marriage that actually brings it in, because we bring everything that we have to the table in our marriage. So
I think you're very lucky, because I think a lot of I mean, I've never been married before, but I think a lot of people speak about how their dreams on being supported in marriage, and it sounds like for you, this woman's all in.
We all in. On my side, it is the boost, and on her side, it is what she wants to learn and develop and find herself. So we actually
through Boost.
No. Because that's the thing.
Is she in an entirely different field?
She's also in research and development, but not in automotive and energy like me.
So you're married to a scientist?
Mechanical engineer.
You're married to a mechanical engineer? Did you get married to a classmate from varsity?
Of course. Obviously, and that's how I got married young, by the way, Thuli.
Is that how you got married young? Did you guys feel like, first year, second year, fourth year project, let's just do this thing?
It wasn't like that, but it was like interesting person, because as you're studying together, you get to know each other. And I think that's actually...
What was interesting about her?
Because we were friends before we got married.
What was interesting about her?
She thinks differently, but I think the one thing that is common is our belief in God.
Is the belief in God.
That's what roots us. And I think that's also what helps us to stay together. Because I can see that I sometimes you are wrong, and then when she tells you that you're wrong, you go like, oh, I don't believe what you're saying. But when one genuinely prays about it and say, what have I done? I did this. Oh, that looks very, very selfish. And what do I need to do now? I need to go back to this person and say, hey, I just realized
you were right, I was wrong. Hey,
I just made a mess. I usually joke. I say I was. You were right. I was less right.
That would annoy me, Ipeleng. I know I'm laughing, but that would annoy me.
No, it's memories.
Whoa.
It's an inside joke, but
I'm also gonna stop saying that now. Yeah, you were right, but I was less right. You know what? Actually, it's very interesting right and wrong for me are very interesting things because unless I'm intentionally doing something that is wrong, I actually don't know I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I am at a constant. So I always say I'm at a constant stage of I'm constantly right.
Yeah.
Because what I'm saying, I believe to be true. And then when you let me know that 1 + 1 actually is not 3 and it's 2, and then I realize that, oh, actually, this person is right. It's only for like that split second that I stop being right. When I'm recognizing that you are actually right and I'm not. And then after that, I continue being right because 1 + 1 is 2, right?
Yeah, and that split second moment where you are wrong, it's the golden moment because you can.
And that's where God is, right?
I got it, and
Yeah.
and then you can correct.
Yeah.
Because if you are never wrong, you can never.
You
correct.
never can correct, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
That's where the prayer is.
For me, it's the conviction and the
Yeah.
humility to say, if I'm wrong, I need to come back and make amends.
And how is it being a father?
That's another spanner in the works.
Really?
Yeah, it's a real big spanner, and it's been a meaningful, really meaningful journey because of for the first time being a father, I get the chance to see life through my father's lens.
Oh, I see.
Because I think as a child you always look at the father and say, you did this, you didn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
That why couldn't you do this? Why couldn't you do this? And then now I become a father myself.
Yeah.
And then I see myself in my son, and I can see where I was wrong. So I going back to being wrong, it's times when you pick up the phone and call the old man and call it, you are a good dad.
Oh, really?
Not a perfect dad, but
you're a good dad because you're beginning to understand the institution of fatherhood and parenting.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for my son to also tell me that you were too much in the engines, so come back.
And then, like, does he run into your garage when you're working? Can you already see that, yeah, this one's also going to be an engineer? Or is he going to be a producer, a musician?
You are touching on something very important, which is the child's identity. So, what I'm trying to do now is I expose him to what I do. So we watch Formula 1 videos together. He knows a Tesla just by looking at the shape.
Wow, that sounds like you're shaping him into.
No, but what I do is I expose him, and then when he starts picking what he likes, then I start looking at his strengths, and then you develop him in that area of his strength. So you expose him into the areas where he's probably not comfortable. But when you find an area of strength, you keep on building.
What's the area of strength for your son?
Right now, he's very analytical.
Analytical?
Yeah, so which is and precise. He's a perfectionist as well.
Oh, really?
So he's very meticulous.
Give me an example of what that looks like in a 5-year-old.
In a 5-year-old. So we have our pictures on the fridge.
Okay.
Right? And then what I decided to do, being creative, is make them skew and all those things. And then one day we walked past the fridge and we were like, that picture, it's not
straight, this one.
And I went like, okay, what do you mean? And then he said, make it like this. And now a 5-year-old goes like, the other one's also not straight.
Sure.
So now we had to spend
time straightening
all of them according to his specifications.
Oh, I love that.
But it was wonderful, learning that about him. I would have left him skew, but if he's like that, then I know about him.
Yes.
So in future, when things come up and I go like, do you want this line straight? You tell me. I want it straight. So meticulous. So he might end up being an accountant or something like that, and not a creative engineer that wants to break the rules, but more to enforce and comply. I'm still learning him.
You're still learning him?
Yeah.
That sounds exciting. And then at the beginning of the Let's Talk Science segment, you were talking about the different ways that the education system should be measuring, the different things it should be measuring. Let's get into that a little bit. What should we be measuring?
So that comes from a place where I actually think I was unfairly promoted. And what I mean by unfairly promoted, it means that they give you an exam, and then they say answer the questions, and you answer the questions right in the fastest time. And then all of a sudden the teachers would go like, this is the best student. But it's the best student because of they answered the questions and they were right. But there are other things that make an individual that go beyond ability to really collect information.
That are being neglected in the current education system. Again, what are they?
So for me, a grit, for example, is one of the most important ones. Because you might find that I'm doing the 90s or whatever mark that you want to put. And then you find someone who's sitting at 40. But that 40 doesn't come from, I just looked at the book and it made sense and I gave the answers. It came from a place of saying, I'm uncomfortable. I am being shaped. I'm being chiseled. And I want to get this right and I'm going to get a 40 on this. And when they do that, they get a 40. But because you didn't know from which perspective they got a 40 from, it's so easy to say.
How do you find that out in an education system?
I think one of the disadvantages that we have is that we don't have enough time with our young ones. Even for me, I still feel like my son, I don't have enough time with him.
Yeah.
I literally have 3 hours in a day.
Yeah.
That is after a crash, before nap time. That's the 3 hours I have with my son. And if I cannot be in an emotional and mental state to engage with
the problem,
and be present, I like that word, being present and not being around, just being present and engaged.
Engaged, yeah.
It means I'll never know where he's at.
How do we teach grit? How do we do that in an education system that's that's limited in resource? How do we do it with teachers who are not motivated because the system is actually not beneficial for them or supportive of them? How do we, because I think what you're speaking about is there's building aptitude, which is important in education, then there's building character.
Yes.
Because grit would be character. Perseverance is more character.
Yeah.
So how do you envision, and this is where we're going to end, because we are out of time, but I want to know, according to you, and you think it, when you sit and you watch your son and you think about it, and I mean at home you've got a little bit more control over, I don't know, what activities you can or cannot do with your child that would allow you to see them develop in character. But in a school setting, how do we do that? How do we shape character?
Well, I think character is more learned more than taught.
Do you think so?
And that's what you brought it up when we were speaking offline as well about the work that we do with the students. So we surround ourselves with students, and these are people who are studying towards degrees. But it is not about the degree. You actually
it's about the person.
It's about the person, and it's that genuine interest that I care about Thuli, and because I care about you, I will learn about you, and I will invest in you, not in what you're doing, not in the mark, in you.
So that's interesting. So what I'm getting from you is that there may not necessarily be an actual system that you think should exist necessarily, even though maybe there must be one, but you haven't quite figured it out. But what you know for sure is that the education system must pay attention to who people are, and not treat them like they,
it's not out. It's not a production line where you get, this is the curriculum you learn, this is the points you learn, and then you get this mark, you go. It is, you're an individual who came into this system, and that's a problem.
And the education system neglects the individual.
And that's why a parenting model, when we are parents at home, we can be individual with our children, because I can know my son, I'm trying to learn him. And that is what is important, because I can encourage him and say, hey, your math mark, it's not what it should be, but I like how you did this. So why did you do it like that? Like, for example, the guy, he literally reasons. All the numbers look this way. Why does 5 look that way? So you need to.
So you then dive into. I'll give you. We have to. The thing is, I can talk about building people, and the system and how the system builds people who I believe may not necessarily be ready and fully equipped for life, because the education system itself wants to move away from the living and the life and the person to the thing, you know, which is what you're talking about, you know. So I could go on forever, but I do like that you're saying, why does 5 face the other way? And that's your son asking you, and being able to say, it's just how it is, you know.
That question,
it's easy, right?
No, it's actually asking him, why did you ask that question? Understanding, because he's going through a thought process.
That's difficult.
That's a thought process, and that's why the relationship, because this relationship thing is very important, because when it becomes about what you do, then you will become a materialistic society.
Yay!
That I want this, because that's what says I'm successful.
Yay!
But now,
because that's the measure of success.
That's the measure of success.
The measure of success is not being kind. It's not thinking critically. It's not going against the grain.
It's not finding yourself. It's not helping others to be the best they can be.
It's getting that car and living in that suburb and wearing whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Honestly, I this is deeper than I thought it would be. And I wish I could go on forever, and I wish you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed it like I did. I think I'm having a lot of aha moments. I think my brain's gonna keep lingering on the subject for a couple of hours or 3. So I do hope after this hashtag Beyond Science segments with Ipeleng, you also start to think about how you interact with people and how you interact with yourself. And if you do have children or have nieces or have nephews or people that you're mentoring, to really start thinking about whether or not the matrix of measure for success is what it is they're being mentored about, or what it is they're being educated in, versus who they actually are. So I think if I'm taking anything away from this Beyond Science segment with Ipeleng, is that we need to ask the questions and invest more in why people think the way that they do, as opposed to condemning people for thinking the way that they do. Why does the 5 face the other direction? And to find out what is the process of thinking that leads to that being someone's question, whether they're 5 or 10 or 50 or 80. But I think that for me is the big take home from the hashtag Beyond Science segment. If you're listening to YouTube, if you're listening to this via streaming platforms, I hope you enjoyed it. Please do leave comments on YouTube and all of the different platforms, on all of our social media platforms, and remember to subscribe everywhere we are. Let's Talk Science with Thuli. Also, let us know what you want us to, who and what topic you want us to bring to you next. Even if you want to talk about sleep, if you want to talk about, I don't know, developing cotton for your jeans, let us know. We'll try and find a scientist and engineer that's working on the solutions that affect you the most. Until next time, peace out.